That
Pole sitter.
just off.
Right, a bit of a different format today. We're going to talk about the Japanese Grand Prix. I did do the normal walk, but it turned into a incoherent, absolute show. So we've gone with this instead. We got me on the couch today. If you do like my videos and you have been enjoying my content, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Helps get the videos out there for other people to see. And look, if you enjoy it and like my analysis of the races and that sort of gear, I'm sure other people will as well. So do us a favour, hit that button, and yeah, the notification bell as well. So anyway, the Japanese Grand Prix, it was fire. I mean, the track was on fire several times. So obviously been really dry in Japan, and the skid box were causing all sorts of fire. But the other fire that we saw was in qualifying. Max Verstappen, with an absolute lap of the gods, beat both the papaya cars to pole position, and well, that was it. I mean, as you've probably seen by the title of the video, pole is absolute king these days in Formula 1, and I expect it to remain so for most of the rest of the season. We'll discuss that a little bit later in the video, but first we'll talk about a few individual drivers. So we may as well start with Max. If you don't think this man is an absolute generational talent in the sport, I've got a coat hanger shaped bridge in the middle of Sydney that I'd like to sell you. This man has taken this, well, I'm not going to call it a shit box because it is one of the 4 fastest cars on the grid, but he's taken this car and he has put it in front of those orange rockets, and he has driven it an absolute masterclass of a race and was untouched. Lando followed him for the entire race, couldn't get anywhere near him, and the rest is history. It's pole to finish lap, or pole to checkered race for Max, and that leaves him, believe it or not, second in the championship. That brings us to the McLaren drivers. Lando had a little accident where he decided to impersonate a lawnmower and have a bit of whinge on the radio coming out of the pits. Now, on initial look, I kind of thought Max might have squeezed him a little bit, but no, not really. It's just Lando being a Lando. I'd be disappointed probably if he didn't do stuff like that. It is Lando Norris after all, and we do expect a little bit of that ragged edge stuff from him from time to time still. I mean, we talk about Max, it was only a couple of years ago that I was fully in the team Crash Tappen camp, and he's cleaned that up and taken that out of his repertoire so far. Having said that, no one's come wheel to wheel with him yet, so we'll see how that goes later in the season, but I'm not sure we're going to get there. And again, that's for the later discussion. But really can't fault Lando's race too much, really. There was that one little mistake. Anytime he looked like he was going to increase his pace and like close that gap a little bit, either the tyres went off or got too hot rather, because it was thermal performance issues on the tyres here rather than actual wear deg, and Verstappen really and truly had him covered at all junctures. Now Oscar Piastri, third. Oscar will be ruining his qualifying blunder in the first sector. Again, both the McLaren boys prone to the odd mistake. Oscar will be ruining that. I'm pretty sure that that wasn't how he thought the race was going to go. He puts that first sector through in qualifying. He's probably on pole position, to be fair. And then he's the one disappearing like a rimac at the front of the field. Good race from him. I mean, he seemed to be able to close it up to Lando a couple of times. I thought he might have been able to like sneak it down the inside, but it is only race 3 of the season after all, and well, to finish first you must finish, and to win a championship, it's all about consistency. So he's got points. He remains third in the championship behind Lando and Max, and well and truly in striking distance. After the Adelaide, I'm sure, I keep calling it Adelaide. It's where the Grand Prix should be, people. It's not, but after Australia, he should have, he just needs the points, right? He can't afford another DNF or to like screw it into the go visit barrier at this stage of the season, because if that points gap gets any bigger, then he'll really have some team orders problems with McLaren going forward. Well, let's quickly touch on the rest of the grid, because let's be fair, it was a pretty damn boring race. I thought the Ferrari was okay. Lewis did well on the alternate strategy. What are they going to do? They're not as quick as the McLarens around that track. They don't have Max Verstappen in the car. Lewis, the once was GOAT, the generational talent from the generation before Max, is still there. Hasn't got his head around the car yet, and I'm starting to think a bit like my old hero Danny Rick, that he is perhaps starting to lose it a little bit. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater yet on Lewis. Let's hope that he can continue to get the grips with that Ferrari. Ferrari can deal with some of their issues, and both Lewis and Leclerc can push forward and try and make the season a bit more interesting moving forward. The same can be said about those Mercedes cars. They're both quite good. George had an anonymous but reasonably flawless race. Kimi Antonelli, kid got the lead a few laps, did really well. Sounds really positive on the radio. It is really, really, really weird hearing Bono talk about Lewis as the other car while talking to Kimi. But I couldn't think of a better race engineer than Bono to develop Kimi Antonelli's career and bring him along as the race car driver that I think he's going to be. He continues to impress me as the best of the rookies, but we'll do the rookie list in a minute. The shitballs, they did alright, especially with Ijek Hajar having his balls squashed quite literally, or his man-shottage. One of the two, squashed by the crotch belt. Not the Twitter guy of the same name, but I do highly recommend you follow the crotch belt. It's a funny account on Twitter. Did really well, got points, continues to impress, continues to be consistent, and continues not to be the hothead that I thought he was going to be. We might as well do the rest of the rookies because we've just done 2 in a row here. So that's Antonelli and Hajar out of the way. Look, I'm going to throw Liam Lawson in there. I mean, 10 races, all right. He hasn't done a full season. We'll count him as a half rookie, therefore he goes on the rookie list. Now that he's in the shitball, I think we can take him off the fraud list and we can put him in with the rookies. He outqualified Yuki. Now, Yuki made a mistake at the start of qualifying. I did think Yuki had an okay race, but we'll talk about Yuki in a sec as a separate issue. But he just went backwards in the race, Lawson. Lost that spot to Yuki, and probably, again, a little bit of sheepball strategy, not really coming off well for him. Not the best race, but at least, A, he didn't finish last, B, he didn't shag it into the barrier. So, look, I'll give him a pass. Yes, he's been in that car before, but this year's car is obviously a very different beast to last year's. So let's give him a couple of races to settle down, take the pressure off the lad. Do I think he's Formula 1 material? No, I probably don't. But there's a lot of guys on that grid that aren't Formula 1 material. Which will bring us to the fraud list shortly. Gabriel Bortoleto, largely anonymous for the weekend. Look, again, he's finishing races. He's getting experience under his belt. That's all that can be asked from anyone in that green steak really bin. I mean, steaks livery that they put out for April Fools. Quite funny, one of the better April Fools I saw this year. I quite enjoyed it. I am quite fond of a dad joke, being a dad myself. So that was really good. But yeah, he finished the race. He did all right. But he is in the shadow of the likes of Ollie Behrman. Now, I was a bit harsh on Ollie Behrman probably in the first race. It's probably more to do with the Haas making him look bad than anything else. And the multiple drops. I think he might have just been pushing a bit too hard in Australia and dropped the car a few times. Great weekend from Behrman. Points. Didn't look like putting a foot wrong. I mean, yes, all right, Suzuka is a possession these days, but look, he did what he needed to do. He finished in the points, and he absolutely crapped on his teammate. So that's all that can be asked for a rookie. I think the kid is a real Formula 1 driver, and I expect to see him on the grid for many, many years to come. Let's hope he can have a few more points performances like that, and hopefully Haas can get their Haas into gear. And they can give him a car that is a bit more deserving of his talents. Finally, I hate to say this, but it is a this will make sense when I talk about the next bit, the further analysis and the deeper analysis into the race and what's going on in Formula 1 in the moment later in the video. Jack Doohan. Now, if you listen to the rumours, Jack Doohan in the simulator was doing turn 1 with the DRS open. Now, to paraphrase Brian Clough, the great football manager, we have a great team on paper, but unfortunately we don't play on paper. The same can be said is that things might feel one way. You might be able to do one thing one way in the sim, but you can't do it in the race. Jack's gone into turn 1 with the DRS open. Now, whether he forgot to shut it or whether he's tried to do a 1000 IQ 5D underwater interdimensional chess play and go through turn 1, which they quite say isn't really a turn, it's just a braking zone for turn 2, but you do have to turn the wheel to go through turn 1 with the DRS open. Yeah, it didn't pay well for him. He hit that wall very, very hard. He has hit that wall like a 15-year-old left alone with his dad's liquor collection. It's not gone well. He'd already lost his FP1 session to the Japanese fella, I think Hiro Matsukawa, I think his name is. The man's never going to be in Formula 1, but it's a money spinner. And is that a hint to Honda engines for the Renault team going down the track? We will see. But that's left him without free practice 2. Free practice 3, he was behind the 8 ball, and I think we had four red flags. Free practice 3, because the track kept catching on bloody fire, and it was just a really interrupted preparation for him. Didn't qualify well. However, I thought his race was okay. He went on the soft tyre strategy first. Him and Lance Stroll, only 2 people to do it. Stroll pitted first. He got an extra 5 laps out of the soft tyres. Put enough of a gap on Stroll. I don't know what Stroll was doing this race, but came out and was running as high as 14th at one stage after the pit stops, and managed to keep his teammate behind him for a while until they were asked to change positions, which was fair enough. Gasly was faster on fresher hard tyres, and Science beat him come past the end on the softs with that tyre differential. It seemed to be the only way that you could make a bloody pass was to have 2 compounds, not just 1 compound, 2 compounds, softer tyre and fresher tyres, to get that overtake done. Those hards would have been pretty cooked by that stage, having done, nearly 50 laps by that stage. So, look, well done to Jack for keeping it on the island in the race and putting a full race together, but that's 3 races of his alleged 5-race audition period in the team before Argentinian Senna gets in the car, and he's kind of ruined it on all 3. All right, we'll give him a free pass for the Australia. I mean, Fernando, Carlos, a few others got caught with janky upshifts in those mixed conditions in Melbourne. He just had an absolute rush of shit to the brain in both races in China. Fully deserved the penalty points he was given off his licence there. And then to put it into the wall like he did at turn 1 in such spectacular and high-profile fashion, to the point where you've got Formula 1, like proper Formula 1 YouTube accounts doing analysis on his crash and to try to work out what went to the bottom of it. It is not a good look for the lad. I just hope that in Bahrain that he needs to beat Gasly in Bahrain. The pressure is on him now. It has to happen. So that's the rookie sorted. We're going to go to Fraud Watch. We get Ferrari, of course, are normally on my fraud watch list. They had an okay weekend. We will temporarily move them out of the bucket, but it's Ferrari. Italian reliability is going to Italian reliability, both with the strategy and the car. Something's going to happen at some stage this year. It's Ferrari, mark my words. Esteban Ocon, nowhere near his teammate all weekend. Absolutely anonymous in the race, no points. What's he doing on the grid? Well, I mean, people are questioning what Jack Doohan's doing on the grid. People are questioning what Liam Lawson, 2 rookies, are doing on the grid. What the hell is Esteban Ocon doing on the grid? He's a race winner by fluke, a bit like Pierre Gasly. Yeah, he's got to start performing. I think he's got enough credit in the bank to get through the whole season without being pressured. I don't think Haas have got the money to fling around to cancel his contract and that sort of stuff. But
if the rumoured Toyota links are true, there is going to be a lot of pressure, especially if Ocon doesn't perform this year, to get a Japanese driver in that car. It's again, I said it in my previous videos, Formula One should be a meritocracy. It absolutely isn't, and I just don't know what Festiesti is doing on the grid. He's got a good contact in Toto Wolff in his manager. I think that's the only reason he's got to drive this year. I thought, personally, I would have had Bottas in that car. I think Bottas would have been a much better mentor for Ollie Behrman, both how to deal with the media, how to deal with pressure, and just that chilled man that Bottas 3.0's turned into since he became the honorary Australian that he is at the moment. Festiesti. It's a big X in your column there, mate. Likewise, Lance Stroll. Last. Lapped. Didn't qualify well. Fernando, much further up. I mean, I don't think Fernando scored points. 11th, I think Fernando finished. Don't have the results in front of me at the moment, but if you're watching this, you know what's happened. I don't need to remind you of the bloody results. Just, again, skill-wise, shouldn't be on the grid. Daddy owns the team. Daddy wants him to win a world championship. He's going to stay in the car until Daddy takes the T-Bird away. Now, a special little bit on Yuki Tsunoda. I think it was a bad move to run the extra wing on the back of the car. Now, I initially thought it was a team thing. Tsunoda, from what I gather, watching content since, has since come out and said that he was involved in the decision to run the extra rear wing on the car. He thought it was a mistake. We all thought it was a mistake when Ted Kravitz came out and said that there's so much wing in that car, it looks like a deck chair. It was bad. He couldn't pass. He got within close enough in a car that was fast enough to get past Gasly, and probably should have been Alonso later in the race, but just didn't have the straight line speed because of the massive wing he was running. About the only sensible thing that Jacques Villeneuve sent all weekend was that even though you got more ring, it just means you've got to wrestle it around the corners more, and if you're wrestling it around the corners more in a new car that you're unfamiliar with, there's more chance for little errors. I think that's what happened in qualifying, and that's why Lawson out-qualified him. So I'm going to give Yuki a pass this week. Not on the fraud list, but I just thought we needed to touch on Yuki Tsunoda. Quick overall on the rest of the team's performances. Yeah, I thought Haas did well to get points with Behrman. Bit anonymous from Alpine that they seem to be the biggest sufferers from having to clean up their dirty slots. They did have straight line speed advantage. We all know that Renault motor is, if you believe what they say, a good 20 or 30 horsepower, possibly down on the others, which is translating to a straight line speed differential. A lot of full throttle on this track, basically the whole second half of the lap, other than the spoon curve and the chicane, full throttle. It's cost them this week. Tried the alternate strategy with Doohan, was a good idea. It got Jack in clean air. Clean air was obviously king these days, and Jack made the most of it, but at the end of the day, it's not good enough for Alpine, and they really need to improve. Stake, yeah, had to quickly mention Stake. That car's terrible, needs to improve. Aston Martin, a little bit better from them this weekend. Alonso seemed to have some speed out of the car, but again, no points. They've got a Mercedes engine in there. It's obviously one of the best engines on the grid. They've gone from like I said in a previous video, from the pink Mercedes days, or the Tracing Point, whatever you want to call it. Oh, the Tracing Point, that was one of the best nicknames come up with in Formula One, I think. But they need to do better. They need to do better. The amount of money sloshing around that team, they really need to do better. I think they're fighting with armed tied behind their back, with Lance Stroll driving in the second car. Fernando starting to show signs of probably needed to go do that couple of seasons of IndyCar that he's going to need to, if he wants to win the Indy 500. I still think he's a very, very, very good driver. I don't think he's going to get that world championship that he's been hoping for in that car. Obviously, he's going to see out next season with the new rules and the new engine regs coming in, whatever those new engine regs may be, or whether we run these engines again next year, but I think that deserves its own video. But yeah, I hate it. He's catching a bit of Danny Ricks, isn't he? I really hope that he can get it together, get some good points finishes, and hopefully push for that podium that he was getting those podiums that he was getting a couple of seasons ago. In that, I mean, I love that green. That car's a beautiful looking car, but it needs to be faster. So, the title of the video, Pole is King. I think Saturday is going to determine the outcome of the vast majority of the races this season. I touched on it briefly in a past video that this whole idea of this ground effect formula was to reduce the amount of dirty air coming off the back of the cars, promote closer racing, and therefore more overtaking. The theory was that with the more downforce coming from underneath the car rather than the wings, that they wouldn't lose as much downforce when they're following the car in the front. There wouldn't be as much thermal drag or thermal damage to the tyres done, and they could follow closer for longer. Perhaps that 2 or 3 laps that quality drivers need to pass another quality driver to set up a pass and force a mistake. We saw glimpses of it last season. We saw a few glimpses of it in the first year of the formula. I mean, bear in mind this formula was delayed 1 year for COVID as well, so we will that does need to be taken into consideration. But this year it appears to be failing. Now, Suzuka's always difficult to pass on anyway. Those tyres get very hot very early in this lap through that. I mean, I love those S's. I love driving it on sim racing. It feels so good when you hook those corners up and the car just sits there. However, it does not promote good racing. Now, Todd Bellingham from P1 Matt and Tommy did say, he made a very good point. People going about these tracks aren't suitable. I agree with him and I don't. I agree with him that yes, it's the cars. However, it's pretty much every car in every formula these days. Even in IndyCar these days, they're starting to, you follow. However, they've got different things. They're running much lighter fuel loads in those cars. They've got much smaller brakes. They stop a lot longer. There's more human interface opportunities, as say, with longer braking zones and that sort of stuff in IndyCar, and more opportunity on the pit wall to affect the outcome of the race with your fuel strategy, tyre strategy, that sort of stuff. I mean, 3 or 4 pit stops, sometimes not uncommon in IndyCar races. V8 supercars, they're still, you get behind cars, you get in the dirty air, they're struggling. Some of the junior formulas, they're starting to struggle as well. And even in GT racing these days with solid tyres that are like blocks of concrete that will last for, an hour around the Nürburgring going flat out, never getting a chance to rest other than the couple of miles down the Dottinger Höhe on the back straight there. They have trouble. It's the downforce and the way cars are designed these days to go fast is not mutually exclusive from good quality close racing, but it's sure as hell getting there. I mean, I even watched NASCAR, and even on the ovals in NASCAR, as soon as they're out the front, I mean, Shane Van Gisbergen is having a average season this year in his first full year in the big show in NASCAR. And I think a lot of that's to do with his car more than him, because his teammates are struggling as well. But he led out the front for a couple of laps, and he could not believe the difference then sitting in the draft of the car in front. And that is a mechanical grip formula almost. There is no formula these days that is really mechanical grip like it used to be. They all run rings, they all run diffusers, they all rely on the air hitting the car. I mean, side drafting is another good example of it in NASCAR. You get up alongside a car, and the car here can put more of its air onto the cars behind, car next to it, and actually slow it down, So yes, in that respect, I do agree with Tom Bellingham that it is the cars, but also it's never been easy to overtake at Suzuka. I don't think you would have seen, if it was overtaking was a thing at Suzuka, you wouldn't have seen Prost and Senna in the first corner. You wouldn't have seen Prost and Senna coming into the Casio Triangle there at the end of the race. I don't think, alright, that one's a bit different. I think that was a wee bit of revenge, that one. 130Rs flat out these days. There's not enough DRS on the front straight to get into turn 1, and like I said before with the Jack Doohan analysis, turn 1 is a braking zone for turn 2. You're using the entire road for that. You are a brave man to stick it down the outside or the inside there, and you've got to have so much overspeed. Carlos did it, yes, but Carlos had He was on 10 lap old soft tyres to Jack Doohan's hards, and it still took him 2 laps to get round. I can only see this being replicated on more tracks. Imola's going to be hard to pass on. Even Canada with that really, really long double DRS zone, and with 2 slow chicanes afterwards, which seems to be the sweet spot for Formula 1. A slow speed mechanical grip turn into a long straight with another slow speed mechanical grip turn at the end is the tracks that produce the passing. I mean, look at the pig track at Vegas. That seems to produce a reasonable amount of passing, and it's because of those long straights. But a lot of tracks, I mean, Jeddah's going to be hard to pass on. Imola's going to be hard to pass on. I mean, they're mandating 2 pit stops at Monaco this year. It's good to see F1 trying, but I don't think the 2 pit stop things is going to make it work. I don't know what is going to make it work. I mean, I have a few ideas. I mean, a bigger offset between the tyres. So have a set of soft tyres, a set of mediums and a set of hards that are kind of like that 2 compound gap that I talked about before. So say turn up to use the modern formula, turn up to a race weekend with the C1s, the C3s and the C5s. Make sure those soft ones are soft enough but fast enough that you can do a 2 stop or maybe a 3 stopper on those and still have competitive pace compared to the guys doing the 1 stop. That way, if you do pit into traffic, you've got enough tyre differential to get past those guys on the harder, older tyres, and perhaps that you have a chance then to be competitive. I think Formula 1 really need to think outside the square. Perhaps this new active aero thing will help coming into the new formula. I am highly skeptical of it myself. I think reducing drag down the straights like that is just going to reduce the slipstream effect, and with no DRS in this new formula, I actually think it's going to make it worse. The other option, of course, is refueling. Formula 1 are scared shitless of refueling. The other formulas refuel all the time. You don't see pit fires, or you do, but very, 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 very rarely. However, other formulas aren't out there trying to do a frickin' 2-second pit stop with fuel. Or they're mandated, or fuel flow is regulated, so pit stops are more sterile. And I think that's one of the things about Formula 1, that the pit stops aren't sterile. However, IndyCar, NASCAR, both do refuels. You rarely see fires. There's still, I mean, IndyCar pit stops in particular, reasonably quick. I mean, I do love the spectacle of a NASCAR pit stop with the jackman running around the car and that sort of stuff. That's good. But Formula 1 need to get creative with this. Fuel strategy and tyre strategy, if you're going to run a high downforce formula. And like I said in the previous video, I like watching Formula 1, so those cars are quick. It's amazing how quick those cars are. It's amazing how much quicker they are than their closest rivals, both the wet cars and the Indy cars. I actually think it's super formula these days, even the super formula cars. I mean, I don't know where you see it, but super formula have an automatic jack on the back. It is amazing. If they want to go down this downforce formula, I really think they need to have a long, hard think about the weight of the cars. Perhaps they need to start limiting brake materials and that sort of stuff so the cars don't quite stop as quickly as they do now. To increase the braking zones, to give the guys that are brave on the brakes an extra 10 metres even to pull the car up and be quicker than old mate next to them who doesn't have as big a fortitudes as they have. But that brings us back to, for this year at least, quali is going to be king. Now if quali is going to be king, both Lando and Oscar really need to remove those mistakes from their repertoire if either one of them wants to win the World Championship. They are going to be taking points off each other at some stage anyway, because otherwise Max wouldn't be second in the championship now. I mean, Max Verstappen, let's think about it, he's second in the championship. That is because he's consistent, he's there, he's not making those mistakes. He's putting that car up near the front of the grid if he's not on the front. If he can get the odd win and then split the McLarens in other races, it's going to be difficult for those McLaren boys to actually win the championship by themselves. The year Nelson Piquet won the championship, I mean, Nigel Mansell or Piquet could have won it that year, but Prost could have won it too. Now, Prost didn't have as good a car as that bloody Williams that year, but Piquet and Mansell took points off each other. Different point scoring system then, yeah, sure, and they dropped their worst races and whatnot, so consistency wasn't quite so important, but reliability wasn't as good, so I think it was a good concession. But those McLaren boys need to sort out mistakes. I mean, Lando can't be coming out of the pits, you know, every now and then Lando comes out of the pits like he does in that race, it goes into the wall. Oscar can't be starting third, you know, it's, you know, that's faster than anyone else in the second sector, faster than anyone else in the third sector, but just that one mistake, I mean like Yuki as well, that one mistake, it's cost him points. If Saturday's going to be king, that cannot continue for the McLaren boys, because Max isn't going to make those mistakes. If Max gets those few wins, and Oscar and Lando start taking points off each other, which they're going to do, it's going to happen, there's going to be trouble in paradise. Speaking of trouble in paradise, there's been some talk about team orders from McLaren this week, not letting Oscar race, and that this is Lando's pace and he wasn't saving tyres and that sort of stuff. Do you know what? Oscar is my favourite man on that grid at the moment, and I'm sorry, Nicole. I don't know what you think about it, but I love you, Nicole Piastri. I think it's great. And their adoption of Yuki as well, fantastic. Look, I think McLaren did the right thing. How many times have we seen it with Ferrari and Mercedes, particularly over the last few years, that they've swapped positions, and then the guy in front all of a sudden doesn't have that DRS advantage anymore, and then we're back to exactly what we were. The lap times don't change. All of a sudden the guy behind's quicker again, and the guy behind wants to get back in front ASAP. Could they have swapped it just to see how things went? Yeah, sure, maybe. Bear in mind though, this is race 3 of the season. They swapped that. All of a sudden, Max is leading the World Championship, not Lando. I think McLaren played it right at the end of the day. Do I like team orders? No. Do I see why they're necessary, especially with the current prize money structure? Yeah, I do, because, yeah, makes the world go round. I think this time we'll give McLaren the benefit of the doubt, and we'll give them a pass mark for this week. Anyway, they're my thoughts on this week's race. If you've lasted this long, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share it if you like to your friends on Facebook and that sort of stuff if you enjoy analysis. I'll be back with my review on the Bahrain race and maybe a preview on it if anything juicy comes out in the meantime in the media. I'm keeping an eye on that driver swap for Jack Doohan in particular. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.